as we unpack anxiety, Scott, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things, but I promise we will end up in a place where there's lots of takeaway. So anxiety, first and foremost, everybody, it's a very important thing to have in life. Yes, you heard Mel Robbins say that. Anxiety is really important because all that anxiety is anxiety is an internal alarm system that is hardwired in your nervous system. And that alarm system has one job. The alarm system called anxiety has the job of making you pay attention. That's it. There is some kind of threat, some kind of uncertainty. When anxiety races through your body, you come alive and you go into a state of hyperfocus. Your nervous system switches into your sympathetic nervous system. You immediately go on edge. Your spidey senses come up. Your prefrontal cortex engages. Your heart starts to race. All of this, by the way, tied to evolution to keep you safe. Anxiety is a good thing when there is an actual threat.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say, Scott, that you and I are driving down the road. And we're chatting up a storm and we're driving, to go do a speech or whatever. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a semi truck cuts right into our lane. And you have to swerve, right, to get out of the way. As that semi truck, Scott, cuts into our lane, what do you feel in your body?
A rush of adrenaline, fear for my life. I need to take immediate control over my safety because that driver doesn't know I'm alive or he wouldn't have cut in my lane.
Yeah, like immediately anxiety rips through your body, and anxiety is serving a purpose. It's sounding the alarm so that you stop talking to me and you pay attention. And all of a sudden your brain takes over, you swerve without even thinking about it, and your heart races, and all the blood runs to your major organs so that you can go into a state of hyperfocus. The reason why people feel nervous or anxious or excited before a test or before a speech is because you're going into a state of hyperfocus. Anxiety, that feeling in your body, is now making you align with what you're about to do so you can focus on it and perform. In the example that I just gave you, anxiety served a purpose. And here's what's interesting. As the truck pulls away and you kind of pull back into your lane, what happens in your body now that the truck is gone and we're driving down the road safely?
In my body or my wife's body?
In your body.
Well, in my body, I would, that anxiety probably stays for a little while, not for an hour, but probably, 45 seconds or so as I begin to calm down and kind of put it into context, and we're safe, we're alive, it's not going to happen again probably immediately. So I probably recover pretty quickly, but there's a lingering effect.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the 45 seconds, because it is less than 90 seconds that most people switch from one emotional state to the other when there's intellectual context. So your body starts to slow down and it goes from the on-edge state, alert state, into what's called the parasympathetic state, which is your kind of rest and relax state, in about 90 seconds, because your brain sees the truck leave and your brain goes, oh, no threat. The problem for people today, and this is true of everybody on your team, is that we have been living in a heightened state of uncertainty. And every single person on the planet, their nervous system right now is either flipped into the fight or flight mode of feeling on edge, or it's like a trigger, immediately flips into it. And so the normal things that somebody wouldn't stress out, they're super stressed out. And this is important to understand, because I want you to, as a leader, to think about, first, let's talk about work. Assume that most people are at the end of their rope. They're trying the best that they can. They are burning the candle at both ends. They're having a hard time focusing and concentrating. And they're feeling uncertain and on edge. Because even if their work life is good, there's something going on with their kids at college. There's something going on with their kids in the high school. There's something going on with somebody in their family. And, the spike in this sense of anxiety, the spike that we're seeing in terms of people's mental health, is extraordinary. And I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from corporations that I'm hearing, which is that the number one concern that people have right now at the highest level in every single company, whether they're publicly traded or they're a small family business, is the well-being of their employees. And so one thing that you can do is, number one, you can encourage people to take time off. Number two, you can consciously, as a leader, make a strategic and intentional decision to move out of the mode that your company has been in for probably 2 years. Because there are 3 phases to this pandemic that has impacted every corporation on the planet and every leader on the planet. Phase number 1 was life as it used to be, right? Because when the pandemic first hit, it was sort of like, oh my gosh, what's changing about life as it used to be? What life as it used to be? We're going to go back to the way life used to be. Phase number 2 was full on crisis. Oh my gosh, we're in this. Yeah. And what you saw is an anxiety response from every single company on the planet because we had to. Everything got turned upside down. The rules got rewritten overnight. Everybody had to pivot and to innovate and to switch and to innovate. Like, it was incredible. And there was so much amazingness that came out of it. There's going to be, when we look back on this period, this is going to be one of the most rapid periods of innovation and disruption in a very positive way when it comes to business operations, the way that people work, like all kinds of stuff. But one of the disruptions that has been horrible for people is that companies immediately jumped to nonstop video conference calls. And what has happened for human beings who are working hybrid or working remote is that people feel like they need to always be online. And there are lots of companies that also still have a policy 2 years later that your camera is required to be on. This is a horrible thing to be doing to people. And the reason why it's a horrible thing to be doing to people is, number one, it communicates mistrust, which makes somebody who's already stressed out feel even worse. But number two, based on the brain science, here's what we know. If you're on a video conference call and you're staring at yourself, having to stare at yourself activates this part of your brain, Scott. When the prefrontal cortex is engaged, the rate at which you drain the fuel in your brain increases dramatically. The reason why it is so difficult for everybody to be productive right now, for everybody to focus, the reason why people feel more anxious, the reason why people feel more distracted, the reason why people feel like, my gosh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like I need 3 martinis and a nap. Like I have 4 more hours for the rest of the day, or 10. The reason is because you are having to work in an environment that is triggering stress and anxiety and being on edge. Staring at yourself all day on camera is draining the fuel in your brain. And companies reacted so like panic mode that they haven't pulled back yet and stepped into phase 3 of the pandemic, which is, this is the new reality. Let's stop pretending there is some sort of milestone that is out in the future that's going to solve all this. And let's get strategic and let's get intentional about how we're going to work, because everything in the company can't be important or else nothing is. And every meeting can't be 50 people on a Zoom call because nobody can get work done. And we need to go back to getting intentional and strategic about what's important and going back to the basics of making sure people's weekly jobs are aligned with what matters. And we need to allow people and trust them to get their work done. That's one thing that you can do as a leader. Less Zoom calls, more appreciation, and cameras off. That's going to help people a ton when it comes to anxiety at work. The other thing that will help people a ton is triple down on appreciation. What I've figured out in researching the high five habit and having 145,000 people from 91 countries go through a 5-day online challenge that I led about the high five habit. In 5 days, Scott, not a single person reported that this high five habit didn't work. And what I've learned in researching the power of appreciation and developing habits of encouragement is that the most motivating force on the planet is to feel appreciated, to feel like somebody sees you and hears you and actually appreciates you. And I know that you talk about this a lot. People, and we're talking about the great resignation, right? And companies make the mistake of thinking that people are leaving organizations because they're looking for better compensation. That's not true. People leave organizations. There was a huge McKinsey study that proved this recently. They leave organizations because they don't feel valued or appreciated, and they don't feel like they belong. And so this should be a giant red flag for every leader out there. You've got the great resignation. You've got people really starting to think about what they value and what matters to them. You've got a hybrid work environment where it's going to take more intentionality to make people feel like they belong and to make sure that they feel appreciated. And so you've got to make sure that this is priority number one as you head into this next year, that the focus is on how do I make sure that people's work is getting recognized, that people feel visible, and that I am pointing out all the things they're doing right instead of harping on the thing that they're doing wrong. That is something that you can do that goes way beyond the corporate programs that people put in place. It's the basic blocking and tackling of making sure that everybody that reports to you feels appreciated by you. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work to build that as a muscle as a leader. I think it's very timely that I'm talking to you and doing this interview. There is so much about your work, your story, the work that you're putting out now that is what I need to hear. And so, I'm sitting here in a home that we were building in southern Vermont. And about 2.5 years ago, I had a cracking, if you will. I think that's the word that you use too, where I'm like, I can't keep going like this. I've got to make some changes. I can't continue to be a workaholic. I cannot be racing all over the place. Like, I have got to make some changes. And so now I am sitting here in my new home that is still under construction. And we've just sold our home of 24 years outside of Boston. And I, for the first time in 23 years, am experiencing such devastating anxiety about all the changes that I've put in place that I've literally spent the last 2 weeks completely disassociated. And I went back on medication. And I'm having this experience where it's almost like I'm on a really bad drug trip, and I know that it's going to end and that the feelings are going to level out, and yet I want the feelings to stop.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so proud of you for getting back on the meds. There's a time and season.
Yes, that's true.
As trauma survivors, we get activated when big change happens.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that it has a link to all the trauma I've been working on.
That is the whole thing.
And that's why your book, Happy Days, was just like, holy cow. I mean, this just landed right in my lap at the right time. Because why don't you tell the story about how, because I found the introduction of the book really interesting, about how this actually started in 2016.
Yeah. Well, it's not dissimilar to what you're referencing. And I'll begin by saying that, actually, let me first just speak back to you, and then I'm going to share that story. So I want to send a lot of compassion and gratitude to the dissociated part, because that part of you has done a really good job just getting by each day. gratitude to the anxious part, love and compassion to the anxious part for revealing that you need a little extra support right now as you do deeper work. Okay. And just hold you there, because when we've been there and then we come back, it's like there's shame around that. There's so much terror around that, but it's a beautiful witnessing to see that these parts of you are coming up to give you information. And I just want to honor you for that. Self is qualities of curiosity. And so there's 3 questions you can start to ask yourself in the moment when the anxiety comes up. Instead of pushing the anxiety down, you can befriend it. And you can ask 3 questions. You can say, okay, what do I notice about the anxiety? So where does it live in my body? Would you want to do it with me right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you connected to the anxiety in this moment?
Not in this moment, but
Okay. Is there something else?
Familiar with it, so I'm more.
Well, is there anything else that might be up right now that that's a protector part that you're like, I want to kind of talk to?
It's interesting now that we're talking about it. I feel a little anxious.
Okay. Okay. So it's
I'm so programmed to run that staying still, which is what this new house in southern Vermont represents, this real quiet place, I feel tingly all over right now.
Okay. So there's a tingly, a desire to run, and then like this little anxiety kind of right back in the background.
Completely.
Okay, cool. Could we ask the tingliness and the desire to run to maybe just go in go out on the patio and have a coffee or have a cup of tea and just take a minute just to give us a little space to talk to the anxiety? Would that be okay with them?
Sure.
Okay. So just taking a moment to check in. You can close your eyes if you want, you can breathe, whatever you need, but just check in gently with the anxiety and ask, where is it in the body?
Right here.
Right in your chest.
Yeah, like gripping like that.
Gripping. Any other ways you would define it? Colors, shapes?
It's like kind of hands like this, and I'm also really warm under my armpits, but I'm not sure if that's menopause shit happening or what. But
okay.
This, and then right here.
Tight, warm. Does it have an age or a gender?
Oh, female and older.
Older. Okay. Yeah. Like older than you are now?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I don't think of myself as 50s, but.
No, but is it like, when you say older, like 80s or like older?
I feel like these like witch hands. It's really fucking
witchy.
weird. Yeah.
Witchy. Okay, cool. Witchy. Anything else that you notice about it?
As I talk about it, it sort of like pulls back a little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
It's familiar.
Does it have any stories or visuals that attach to it?
More like the first words that came to mind is, I don't like this. I don't want to be here.
Okay, that's the part that's coming in that's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to be there, is another part. It's a protector. Would that protector feel safe enough to go have some tea for a moment?
Yeah. I'll send that protector outside the office.
Yeah. And I want to thank that protector and just let that protector know that I've totally got you and I'm not going to take anxiety to anywhere that they don't need to go. Really high level right here. We're not going to go anywhere we shouldn't go today. Okay. I just want to thank that protector for coming in and just say, have a tea, but thank you so much for speaking up. Thank you. So with a little bit more permission just to talk to this part, what is the anxious part need?
The first thing that came up was a hug, reassurance, that I don't have to do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that part of you know that you are here? That yourself, that your resourced, undamaged self, does it know that you're here?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. And the reason why I say it like that is because I think one of the things that I've been struggling with for so long because of workaholism and being busy and on the move as kind of my go-to protector. As long as I'm on the move, I'm going to be okay. As long as I'm busy. I have had a deep feeling of loneliness.
Yeah. So the
And
part,
yeah, being in a quiet place up here makes me
Yeah.
feel really lonely.
okay. Okay. Thank you for saying that. How do you feel towards the part?
I feel sad towards her, tired of feeling lonely. I get it. It's painful.
So she knows you're here and you have some compassion for her. So I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but
Yeah. Oh, sure.
yeah. Okay. Beautiful. If she wasn't in such an extreme role of doing, and anxious,
Yeah.
what else would she be doing?
She'd be hanging out with her friends.
Hanging out with her friends. Okay.
Laughing a lot. She'd be doing fun shit. I don't know. Going for a hike.
Going for a hike. Okay. Would you be there? Self? Okay. In your own mind's eye, can you just take a moment to just visualize taking her by the hand and or however it visualizes for you, however it comes to your vision,
Mm-hmm.
taking her on that hike,
Mm-hmm.
see who's around, see whatever comes up. You can tell me whatever comes up, whatever you want to share.
I can totally see it. Totally. There's a black bear that is out with her cubs up there. And so I just see us walking down the path and there's the black bear.
How does she feel with you on the hike?
Happy that I'm there.
Yeah. And is there anything that you want to say to her on this hike?
I'm not going anywhere.
Can you make a commitment to her right now that when you notice her, you can just take her by the hand and go on the hike and remind her that you're not going anywhere?
Is when you say notice her, are you talking about when that feeling comes back? Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When the anxiety
Yeah.
starts to come in, can you just let her
Yeah.
know?
I am not going to let you be there alone.
Right. And make a commitment, maybe that you'll just take her on that hike.
I'll just
Maybe even
grab
literally,
my hand.
go for a hike with her.
Totally. Totally.
Beautiful. How does she feel now? Just to close it out, how does she feel?
Um, I think some of the protectors have come back in.
Okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. They're welcome back, Mel, because
They're like,
not,
no, I don't want to go to hike. Like
that's okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. I want to thank them for stepping aside for the time that they did. They did a beautiful job. They are welcome back. We can always ask them to step aside when there's some space, but right now it's okay. They can come back. You now have what you have right now, Mel, is direct access from self to the part. It's so beautiful to witness. You have direct access from your adult resourced internal parent self to the part of you that's so protective and anxious. And you've given her a full media alert that you are available to her when she needs you.
Yeah.
Major step forward.
What are the steps? Like, how do you begin? Like, I think a lot of people can relate to the cracking because as you were telling the story of 2016, like, I can't, for me, I have been saying for 2 years, I can't handle one more thing. Like, I can't keep operating like this. I can't. So how does somebody recognize, number one, that there is that cracking? And number two, what is the next best couple things just to get started? Because obviously it's a long, slow, deep healing journey.
It is. It's a long, slow, deep healing journey. But what one of my readers said to me today in an interview, she said, I feel like Happy Days will take 5 to 10 years off of your therapy because with the direction and the awareness and the understanding, it actually just fast forwards things for people because it takes away all of the time that you need to figure it out. And then you can go deeper. But first steps for how do you know you're cracking into something? And this doesn't necessarily mean that you are remembering something that you dissociated from, but that you're accepting something that you've been running from. One is to accept that we're all running. Two, it's to start to notice some of the behavioral patterns, triggers, and the ways that you respond to them. So at first we can kind of begin to take an inventory of like the responses, right? The extreme ways that we react. So are you turning to drugs and alcohol? Are you overworking? Are you burning yourself out? Are you feeling extreme gastrointestinal issues? Are you having insomnia? Are you having a lot of physical conditions that you can't get a diagnosis for? Are you having extreme anxiety? Are you struggling to, not rage out of nowhere?
Right. Well, one of your theses is that I love, because it's very hopeful and it's true, is that there is you talk about the self with the capital S, and that there is a returning to that is desired by all of us. And in many ways, for me, this book felt not as much about trauma as it did about spirituality, because you can list all those negative things, but the flip side of this is that there is this, as you say, calm, confident, that there is a person in a self energy inside of you that you're trying to get back to. Yeah. And the cracking is a moment when you realize that all this running that you've been doing away from that calm, compassionate, confident self is no longer working.
Yeah. In many ways, the cracking is a great sign because
it doesn't feel like it.
It definitely doesn't feel like it, but it's a great sign. Much as my therapist said, I said, why did I remember this now? I was 36 years old. And by the way, statistics show that most people don't remember their dissociated trauma until their 50s.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I think the stat was like 80% or something crazy, my therapist told me. So when we're cracking, what's happening is, in my therapist's case, she said, you were safe enough to remember. You had gotten yourself to enough safety to remember. So I want to once again applaud you, because all the work that you've done on yourself, decades of devotional work that you've done for yourself and shared with the world, has gotten you to a place where you're safe enough now to crack into more. And it's fucking terrifying. But the best advice I could give anyone right out of the bat is to start to connect to that self energy. So how? So self is there. Self is ready to go. It's this totally loyal parent that's just ready to pick you up and the second that you ask for help. Self is qualities of curiosity. And so there's 3 questions you can start to ask yourself in the moment when the anxiety comes up. Instead of pushing the anxiety down, you can befriend it. And you can ask 3 questions. You can say, okay, what do I notice about the anxiety? So where does it live in my body? Would you want to do it with me right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you connected to the anxiety in this moment?
Not in this moment, but
is there something else?
Familiar with it, so I'm more.
Well, is there anything else that might be up right now that that's a protector part that you're like, I want to kind of talk to?
It's interesting now that we're talking about it. I feel a little anxious.
Okay, so
I'm so programmed to run that staying still, which is what this new house in southern Vermont represents, this real quiet place, I feel tingly all over right now.
Okay. So there's a tingly, a desire to run, and then like this little anxiety kind of right back in the background.
Completely.
Okay, cool. Could we ask the tingliness and the desire to run to maybe just go in the go out on the patio and have a coffee and or have a cup of tea and just take a minute just to give us a little space to talk to the anxiety. Would that be okay with them?
Sure.
Okay. So just taking a moment to check in. You can close your eyes if you want, you can breathe, whatever you need, but just check in gently with the anxiety and ask, where is it in the body?
Right here.
Right in your chest. Yep. Very
Yeah, like gripping like that.
gripping. Any other ways you would define it? Colors, shapes.
It's like kind of hands like this, and I'm also really warm under my armpits, but I'm not sure if that's menopause shit happening or what. But
Okay.
this, and then right here.
Tight, warm. Does it have an age or a gender?
Oh, female and older.
Older. Okay.
Yeah.
Like older than you are now?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I don't think of myself as 50s, but
No, but is it like when you say older, like 80s or like older,
I
like
just feel like these like witch hands. It's really fucking
witchy?
weird. Yeah.
Witchy. Okay, cool. Witchy. Anything else that you notice about it?
As I talk about it, it sort of like pulls back a little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
It's familiar.
Does it have any stories or visuals that attach to it?
More like the first words that came to mind is, I don't like this. I don't want to be here.
Okay, that's the part that's coming in that's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to be there, is another part. It's a protector. Would that protector feel safe enough to go have some tea for a moment?
I'll send that protector outside the office. Hang
Yeah.
on. See who's
And I want to
sitting.
thank that protector and just let that protector know that I've totally got you and I'm not going to take anxiety to anywhere that they don't need to go. Really high level right here. We're not going to go anywhere we shouldn't go today. Okay. I just want to thank that protector for coming in and just say, have a tea, but thank you so much for speaking up. Thank you. So with a little bit more permission just to talk to this part, what is the anxious part need?
The first thing that came up was a hug, reassurance. That I don't have to do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that part of you know that you are here? That yourself, that your resourced, undamaged self, does it know that you're here?
I think so. I think so. And the reason why I say it like that is because I think one of the things that I've been struggling with for so long because of workaholism and being busy and on the move as kind of my go-to protector. As long as I'm on the move, I'm going to be okay. As long as I'm busy. I have had a deep feeling of loneliness.
Yeah. So the part.
Yeah, and being in a quiet place up here makes me feel really lonely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for saying that. How do you feel towards the part?
I feel sad towards her, tired of feeling lonely. I get it. It's painful.
So she knows you're here and you have some compassion for her. I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but
yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. if she wasn't in such an extreme role of doing and anxious,
Yeah.
what else would she be doing?
She'd be hanging out with her friends.
Hanging out with her friends. Okay.
Laughing a lot. She'd be doing fun shit. I don't know. Going for a hike.
Going for a hike. Okay. Would you be there? Self?
Yeah.
Okay. In your own mind's eye, can you just take a moment to just visualize taking her by the hand and or however it visualizes for you, however it comes to your vision,
Mm-hmm.
taking her on that hike,
Mm-hmm.
see who's around, see whatever comes up. You can tell me whatever comes up, whatever you want to share.
I can totally see it. Totally. There's a black bear that is out with her cubs up there. And so I just see us walking down the path and there's the black bear.
How does she feel with you on the hike?
Happy that I'm there.
Yeah. And is there anything that you want to say to her on this hike?
I'm not going anywhere.
Can you make a commitment to her right now that when you notice her, you can just take her by the hand and go on the hike and remind her that you're not going anywhere?
Is when you say notice her, are you talking about when that feeling comes back? Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When the anxiety
Yeah.
starts to come in, can you just let her know?
I am not going to let you be there alone.
Right. And make a commitment maybe that you'll just take her on that hike. Maybe even literally go for a hike with her.
Totally.
Beautiful. How does she feel now? Just to close it out, how does she feel?
I think some of the protectors have come back in.
Okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. They're welcome back, Mel, because
they're like, no, I don't want to go to hike. You know, like
that's okay. That's okay. They're welcome back. I want to thank them for stepping aside for the time that they did. They did a beautiful job. They are welcome back. We can always ask them to step aside when there's some space, but right now it's okay. They can come back. You now have what you have right now, Mel, is direct access from self to the part. It's so beautiful to witness. You have direct access from your adult resourced internal parent self to the part of you that's so protective and anxious. And you've given her a full media alert that you are available to her when she needs you.
Yeah.
Major step forward.
I want to just unpack that for everybody that's watching this and listening. And that is that here's what I got from it. When you feel the anxiety take over, take a breath, go into your body, locate where it is.
Notice
it. And then you had me visualize the color or the gender or the shape of it.
That's getting to know. What do I know about it? Mm-hmm.
What do I know about it? And then you asked me if I had other experiences where I had felt the same thing. Was that the next thing that happened?
We go into what does it need?
What does it need? What does it need? And I said a hug.
Usually what you'll hear when you ask parts what they need, they'll say, I need to play. I need a hug. I need to be creative. It's always the stuff that we want as a kid. The stuff we didn't get.
You actually write about this in your book with your son. The 4 S's. What are they? Yeah.
So this IFS is broken down in chapter 7, which is called Love Every Part. And then there's another chapter called Reparenting Yourself, where I had this massive aha moment that all the parenting advice that I was getting from Dan Siegel and all the beautiful psychologists out there that do therapy for children was so profound when working and co-creating with my son. And I thought to myself, well, nobody ever did this for me. And instead of being pissed about that, I said, wait a second, I can do that for me. I can give myself that hug. I can use the 4 S's, as Dan says, to be seen, safe, soothed, and secure. I can create that environment for myself internally. That was a big change for me. That was a big turning point.
One of the things that you also introduce is this heart hold. So can you walk everybody through that? Because I think that is a way that you can provide those things to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually something I really want to recommend to you right now, because when I was cracking, this hold was something that really, really helped me on a moment to moment basis. So placing your hand on your heart and your other hand on your belly, and just notice which hand is most natural to your heart. For me, it's the right.
Yeah, the right.
You just went right to the right. So it's the right. Some people it's the left. So really have to decide what's right for you. The other hand on the belly, and just take a deep breath in and extend your diaphragm. And on the exhale, just relax your diaphragm and just keep with that belly breath, taking a deep breath in and letting it go. Another deep breath in and let it go. And you might even affirm things to yourself. I'm safe right now. I have so much compassion towards all of my parts. My self energy is here with me. Even just doing the hold is enough right now to settle my system, to help me get back into that parasympathetic state, to just feel relief.
That's great.
Yeah. Go to it all day.
It's nice on the belly too. Really nice.
Really nice. Another one would be tapping on the gamut point. So there's a point between the ring finger and the middle finger called the gamut point.
Outside of the hand, right?
On the back side of the hand. Yep. And I like to call this point the holy shit point. When I was early in the trauma recovery, I was terrified of getting in an elevator. Why? It's out of control, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The elevator, I was coming out of the trauma, and the elevator was just the scariest thing for me. So I had to do this. There was times I had to get in an elevator. And so I was tapping that point.
And what does that do?
This point sends a message to the amygdala that it's safe to relax. When you tap that point, you also want to take the benefit of affirming the desired feeling. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe.
Wow. That's so cool. So how long did that last, to be nervous about getting into an elevator?
A few months. I did a lot of EMDR, which I write about in the book, eye movement sensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah.
Really beneficial. Could be great when you're in a crisis. And by the way, offline, I have a person for you.
Oh, I'm already doing it.
Good.
Yes, you're right. It is extremely helpful.
It gives you a settled sense of safety and helps you reprocess even the minor things in the moment. And the stuff that we just did, the body work, that's based on somatic experiencing, which is a body-based trauma therapy. And so as you can see, there's a through line between all the therapies that I chose. And that is, I believe that they're all very therapeutic yet spiritual practices.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I found your book and your work, especially as it's evolved, to be really profound in the spiritual connection to mental health, to healing. And so how would you describe that?
The therapies that I was drawn to, I know my guide spirit, God, led me to them because they were going to resonate with me most. And the reason I believe that they have such strong spiritual undertones is IFS, connect to self. So for years, I was teaching A Course in Miracles. We have the ego and we have our higher self, and our higher self can dissolve the ego through the experience of forgiveness. Protector parts, self energy, self can dissolve through compassion, forgiveness, courage, creativity. It's all the same thing, just a different way of accessing it. The EMDR I loved so deeply because it allowed me to work with the subconscious and to not have to recall big things, but just allow. I fell deeply, madly in love with somatic experiencing because it let my body do the work, which is a very spiritual experience. And it got me out of the storyline and into the body. And I believe that the people who founded, particularly knowing some of them, I think that they're very spiritual people, though they may not be able to admit that in their clinical environments. But there's such a through line. And I also just believe that God gives us what we can handle, but also what we resonate with.
Well, can we connect the dots between what you just said about God giving you not only what you can handle, but what you resonate with, and the fact that you are somebody that people around the world come to for learning how to manifest?
Right.
And talk to me and us, anybody who's watching, about the connection between manifesting and this cracking open, that you are attracting something that you need when
Yeah.
you go down this journey.
Well, what I'm really proud of is that my books on manifesting aren't really manifesting light. They're deep books, like Super Attractor, Manifest a Life Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. Okay, I hooked you in, but now I get you to work. And these books, The Universe Has Your Back. These are books on how to manifest, but they're books on how to undo the blocks to the presence of that super attractor power that we all have.
Yes.
And so the more we crack open to. Amma said that, and Amma, the hugging saint, she said that when an eggshell cracks from the outside, it's broken. But when it cracks from the inside, it's reborn. So that cracking is rebirthing into the truth of who you are, the self within you, the super attractor power within you. And the more you release the blocks to the presence of that self energy, the closer you get to becoming just a more aligned human. And when I say aligned human, I mean a human having a human experience with a direct line to higher level consciousness, whether you call that compassion, courage, curiosity.
Today, it's all that capital S self energy.
That's right.
Is what you're talking about. So,
which is the same as spiritual energy, which is the same as listening to a spirit guide, which is the same as it's the voice of love. It's the undamaged resource soul of who we are.
I think that's the simplest way to say it, that trauma is blocking you from accessing the source of who you are.
Yes.
And that is love.
And let's just call it unresolved trauma is the block, because the trauma, when transcended, can be one of the greatest gifts you've ever received.
So I want to go back to what we were talking about, because this is super important for everybody that just walked in the room to hear. So we were talking about, Heidi had asked a question about imposter syndrome. And so I want to bring y'all into this conversation because this is critical for you to hear. It's critical for you to learn these simple tools. That as she's successful, as she's making stuff happen, she has this nagging voice in her head that's like, you don't deserve this. This is going to get taken away. You're an imposter. People are going to find out. Like this nagging thing that is beating her down, even as she's trying to rise up. Can you guys relate to that? Okay, terrific. And so, well, not terrific. I don't want that voice in your head, but I'm glad that you can relate to what we're talking about. So I'm like, we got to go to war with that voice. And I want today to be a line in the sand where you will look back on today and you'll go, okay, there was a before I heard this conversation and there was an after. And so the first thing that I want you to do is I invented something called the 5-second rule, where you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a little brain trick where it interrupts all the nastiness and the patterns and old habits here that hold you back. And by the time you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you awaken this part of your brain. And you are immediately in control of what you think and do next. And one of the best uses for this thing, and you're going to hear me talk about it on the big stage, and I'm going to show you some examples of how people are using this around the world. One of the best uses is to silence the critic in your head, to interrupt that nagging voice. And one of the other things I want you to understand is that your brain is a supercomputer, and your brain loves patterns. And all those little thoughts that you have are just a pattern. And guess what? It's a pattern somebody else taught you. It's a pattern that a caregiver or a parent or a bully or society at large taught you that made you feel less than or unworthy. And it is time to kick that bully out of your freaking head. And the thing that's important about this, and this is like hand-to-hand combat with your own mind, is that if that pattern is not broken and replaced, that pattern will repeat. And for some of us, what I've started to realize in my own life is that I'm just repeating thought patterns that my great-grandmother had and my grandmother had, and then she taught them to my mother, and then my mother said them to me. And I have an opportunity to end that garbage. I have an opportunity to speak to myself differently. And so step number one is I need you to recognize that. So how many of you in the back row are tracking with what I'm saying? Give me a hand in the air so I know. Okay, great. Second thing, when you notice, oh, there's that thing again, you're going to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the second part of this. So we're going to notice it, we're going to count backwards to interrupt it. Now we're going to name it, okay? So I want you to close your eyes. I've already asked everybody in the room to close their eyes. Think about that nasty, awful, disgusting, oh, I hate, ugh, kind of thing. You can make it funny, you can make it gross, you could be a real person. And I want you to think of a name that we're going to call this voice. When my son was struggling with anxiety, he called anxiety Oliver. And he made Oliver look like a big old pimply 8th grader who was miserable, right? And whenever the voice would come on, he would go, all right, Oliver, you're not invited to the sleepover. I'm going to go. Oliver, I'm not taking you to school with me today. And there's a lot of science behind this because by naming it and picturing something, whether it's broccoli, somebody in the room said she hates broccoli, so the voice is broccoli, you distance yourself. This is the power of objectivity. So, right here, what's the name of your voice? What is it? Ollie? Ollie. Okay, great. Right here with the pins, cute pins, yes. Maria. Maria's the voice? Okay. Maria, get out of here. White blazer. Tomatoes. Okay, excellent. She hates tomatoes, apparently. And here's the thing. Have any of you ever had a puppy? Okay, great. Have you ever tried to train a puppy on a leash? Right? And the puppy just wanders all over the place? This is another analogy for your mind. Think about your thoughts and your mind like a puppy on a leash. The best way to get a puppy to calm down is to just step on the leash. That's what we're doing. When your mind starts to wander and tomato and broccoli and, Maria and Bob show up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of here, Bob. That's how you're going to step on the leash. You're going to pull your thoughts right back to your own. And then you want to replace it. You want to replace it. And you can replace it in the beginning by just saying, I'm not thinking about that. You're not going to talk to me like that. Okay? Awesome. Because if you allow that voice to stay, it will just continue. And as you get more and more and more successful, you will take that voice with you. And you will never truly reach not only your potential, but you will also not have the fulfillment and happiness that you deserve. And it begins with what you're saying up here. And we all do it. You're not alone. If I were to put a speaker on everybody's head in here and turn up the volume, you wouldn't be sitting here. We'd all be on an inpatient unit somewhere because, like that, the way we talk to ourselves is really awful. Really awful. I agree, right? Yes, exactly. Okay, another question. Thank you for that. Right here.
I'm going through like a little existential crisis, I would say. I'm trying to decide between what I need and what I want.
Oh.
Earlier, like 5 minutes before I came in, I got the job opportunity that I applied for. However, the job that I have now is what I love doing, and that's why I changed my major. But the job that I was just offered and I accepted will help me pay for rent and living more than the job that I have. And it's like, I can take both jobs. So I have 2 jobs now, but it would mean that instead of working 20 hours, I'd be working 38, and I'm a full-time college student. And
Yep.
I don't want to burn myself out, but at the same time, I don't want to not pursue what I have now because I need to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Living-wise.
Yeah. Okay, it's an excellent question. How many of you can relate to this? Yeah, the conflict between what your heart longs for versus like what is the responsible thing to do. So I'm going to give you a couple tools to think about decision making, everybody. Okay? Because sometimes you just have to do whatever you need to do to make the ends meet. Right? Sometimes that's what you have to do. But not always. Not always. I don't think we live in I don't think we live in a rigid world. I think we relate to the world like it is. And so one of the tools I use a lot is I try to switch myself from an either or mentality into an and mentality. So how could I take that job that is going to help me pay my bills and help me feel secure and help me feel like I am making all these ends meet, because there is a level of stress that you feel that is so distracting and devastating when you cannot pay your bills. And I know that stressed because just 14 years ago, my husband and I were $800,000 in debt. His restaurant business had gone under. I was unemployed. We were about to lose the house. I could not pay for groceries. We had to pull our kids from that town soccer program because we couldn't afford it. And the stress was so excruciating that I literally couldn't get out of bed. In fact, that's how I invented the 5-second rule. I would lay in bed every morning and the anxiety was like a gravity blanket. And I would stare at the ceiling and my mind would just spiral. It's like I did not know to step on the leash. I did not know what to do. And so this whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 came during a rock bottom moment. Like I knew I needed to get out of bed. I just didn't know how. And so the counting became the how. And so what I want you to do, though, is I want you to think, is there a way to do both? Could you accept the job so that you have, or you've already accepted it, but could you accept that job and be happy about it and empowered and go back to what you're doing now and say, can I do this but only X number of hours? So that you still have a foot in something that fills your soul versus going, it can only be this or that. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So have that conversation because then you keep a door open to something. The second thing I would do, and this is really important, everybody. So I partnered with LinkedIn and we've launched this course all about confidence. So we can talk a little bit about confidence, what it is, what it isn't, how to build it. And the other thing that I did with them is I was the host of this big thing they called the Future of Work. And one of the things that I heard loud and clear is that the most important thing that you can invest in any job that you have is skills. So if you're going to go into a technical job, like you're going to be a chemist or you're going to be in pharma or you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be an engineer, there's a certain level of expertise that you need in order to do that job. But the vast majority of jobs, of businesses you might start, of all the things that you might do are all about skills. Can you speak in public? Can you present your ideas? Can you write something? Can you sell somebody on an idea? Like skills, can you connect with people? Are you inspiring and uplifting with people? Skills that you can learn on any job. And so the second piece of advice I'm going to give you is this. I want you to think about what is it about the job that you have now that really fills your soul?
The opportunities it gave me, like the job I have now is how I got here with the Cauldron on the Rise, and it's opened so many doors for me.
And it feels like I can almost feel you getting emotional as you think about it.
Yeah, it's what made me change my major. I was a political science major, and then I got the programming job that I have now with SGA as a public relations officer.
Amazing.
And now I switched my major to communications with a concentration in sports business management because I love planning events and stuff.
Amazing.
And that's why, even though it's fun and it doesn't pay the bills, it doesn't, but it's fun and it makes me happy and it alleviates the stress of having to make ends meet. The other job, which is not as fun, will make ends meet.
Yep.
And the stress of not having to worry about rent every month, especially the way the housing is working.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, what do I have to do? It's like.
Well, what I'm telling you is I think you can figure out a way to do both without working that many hours. And I also think if you love the event planning and you love the communication, here's a great tip, everybody. Look for opportunities inside whatever you're doing now to do more of what you love. So every job, even if it's boring as you know what, they need help with social media marketing. They probably have some sort of something going on, whether it's an employee gathering that you can raise your hand for and help out so that you bring some of the stuff that you love into the day-to-day of what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. And here's the final thing. I believe that when you are born, you are hardwired with an inner compass. It's like your own Google Maps or Waze system. And I'm going to prove it to you, okay? So have you ever thought about the odds of you actually being born? Because here's the thing, believe it or not, a bunch of scientists calculated the odds. What are the odds with, I know this is kind of gross, but all the sperm that your dad has, who wants to think about that? And eggs that your mom has, and the number of times that they fooled around and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? What are the odds of that one sperm and that one egg coming together and actually creating you? 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion. And here's some really interesting research. We now know that it wasn't about how fast that thing swam. We know That it was the egg. The egg was choosy. And guess what? The egg chose you. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are here for a reason. And I want you to embrace that you are here for a reason. And when you are born into this world, all of that magic that makes you a miracle gets hardwired into your DNA. And it is part of the wiring in your body. And your body is a system of signals that are trying to get you to turn in the direction that's meant for you. And so you were talking about needs, right? There are signals in your body that signal your need. So, for example, you got to eat or else you're going to die. So what is the signal that you feel? What do you feel when you need food? Hungry. Correct. What do you feel when you need sleep?
Tired.
Yeah. What do you feel when you need connection with other human beings? Yes. What do you feel when you need some water? Exactly. Exactly. And here's something that's really interesting. Feeling stuck and feeling lost are also signals. When you feel stuck and you feel lost in your life, it means you've stopped growing. You are going to grow for your entire life. Until the day you die, your brain can learn new patterns. I am going to walk you through step by step how I am using cold exposure therapy or polar plunges or ice baths to learn how to heal a dysregulated nervous system. And so what we're going to do is we are going to invite you to ask questions. I'm going to teach a little bit, and then I am going to walk you through, and you're going to see me live as I climb into a barrel of 34-degree water. There's my husband, Christopher Robbins. I'm going to climb into this barrel of 34-degree water, and you're going to watch me go from a state of high stress, high anxiety, high panic in my body, and I'm going to breathe myself from the inside out. I'm going to calm my nervous system. And so if you have questions about anxiety, does it really work? Yes, it works. You see, when you are somebody that feels waves of anxiety, there are two things going on. Number one, when you feel a wave of anxiety, how many of you feel waves of anxiety, or you have somebody that you love who feels waves of anxiety, right? A wave of anxiety is just your nervous system sounding an internal alarm. That's what a wave of anxiety is. Your nervous system believes that something around you requires you to pay close attention. When that wave of anxiety hits, there's a number of physiological things that happen in your body, namely all of the blood gets pulled from all over your body and goes to your major organs. Your thoughts start to hyper-focus. Your heart starts to race. Your stomach starts to get, in knots. And that's all just a chemical and physiological response to the fact that your nervous system thinks that there's something going on that requires you to pay attention. Now, the problem for me when I was really struggling with anxiety is the second that I felt a wave of anxiety, so many of my thoughts would start to spin. And because my body was feeling this wave of anxiety, this fight or flight feeling, my thoughts would start to go, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, no, 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 I don't like this, I don't like this. And because my thoughts would start to spin, the wave would get more intense and the wave would start to crash more and more. And so there are two things that I'm going to teach you today. Number one, when a wave of anxiety hits, I want you to understand your body is just starting to go into a default mode. This is called your sympathetic nervous system. You have two nervous systems, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Sympathetic is fight or flight. It's the, oh my gosh, it's the wave. It's normal to feel waves of anxiety, everybody. It's normal to wake up and feel anxious. It's normal to feel a wave of anxiety after you've been drinking. It's normal to feel a wave of anxiety if you're walking to work and you hate your job. It's normal to feel a wave of anxiety if you're walking into a restaurant and you're about to meet somebody that you don't feel really emotionally safe with. Your body and your nervous system is sounding an alarm. Pay attention. Doesn't mean danger, just means pay attention. Anxiety becomes a real problem, and you're hanging out with a woman who struggled with anxiety for 30 years. Anxiety becomes a problem when that wave, which is normal, sounding the alarm, pay attention, signals your mind to start racing, okay? And so, number one, I don't want you to freak out when you feel a wave of anxiety. Go, oh, don't say I am anxious or I have anxiety. Say, oh, I feel a wave of anxiety. When you label it as a wave of anxiety, you can now distance yourself from it. And you can now manage riding the wave. Because what happens with all waves, everybody? They go up and then they come down. Everything that goes up eventually comes down. And so when I see those of you in the comments going, yep, every single day at work, Mel, I'm feeling a wave of anxiety. There's something up at that job that's making your nervous system go, pay attention, pay attention. And so that's why you feel on edge. That's why you're like, Now, the second thing you're going to learn today is you're going to learn that once you label, oh, I feel a wave of anxiety. Okay. I just want you to say, label, I feel a wave of anxiety. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to control your thoughts. And you can control your thoughts through your breathing. Okay. I'm going to teach you, you're going to breathe in for 8 seconds and out of your nose. Okay. Now, I'm going to invite you guys to please ask questions because I am about to climb into this ice barrel. I see questions about how am I able to deal with it without medication? Well, that was a process. I will make another video about that. And everything, again, everybody, that I'm about to show you, this is not medical advice. I am not a therapist. I'm not a licensed doctor. I am a woman who struggled with anxiety for 30 years. And using the 5-second rule to get control of my thoughts by interrupting them, YOLO, and by learning a lot about my nervous system and learning how to recognize a wave of anxiety and not let my mind freak me out when it happens, not escalating it with my thoughts. That was step number 1. And step number 2 was using lots of different techniques to be able to recognize when I go from a state of feeling on edge and stressed out and fight or flight and feeling that wave to being able to breathe myself and soothe myself into a state of being calm, quiet, confident. You can see me putting my hand on my chest right here, the vagus nerve. This is the on-off switch between your anxious and I'm looking for something to show you. You're anxious and your fight or flight, and your calm, cool. I write about this extensively, by the way, in the High Five Habit, which I've read for free on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/Mel Robbins and you can find all of our videos. But today I'm going to show you what I do with the cold plunge because you guys have had so many questions about it. And we're going to be doing a lot more content about this because I don't think it's possible to truly love and enjoy your life if you feel like at any moment anxiety is going to hijack you and ruin your life. And that was me for 30 years. And I finally started taking control of my thoughts. And then I learned how to take control of my nervous system. Now, here is Chris. Let me tell you what's making me nervous. Chris is actually in a vest and a hat. Is it that cold today?
Well, I don't know how long we're going on here, but I'm going to be warm.
Okay. So you guys can ask videos. I'm about to go into a ice cold barrel. Now, first of all, does anybody have any questions about why cold exposure has been helpful for me for anxiety? And by the way, cold exposure can be taking a shower every morning and then finishing your shower by turning the water to the cold setting and standing there for 15 seconds and then 30 seconds and then a minute. Cold exposure could mean climbing into the ocean or a lake when it's really cold or a river where it's really cold. Cold exposure, guys, could mean pouring your bathtub full of just cold water and then climbing in it. And the reason why I do cold exposure I was introduced to
It
it.
could also be without water. You could just
Sit in the snow.
You could strip down and be standing out in very cold temperatures.
And so why do you do this? Well, Chris and I got interested in this because we kept seeing the Wim Hof videos, the dude that's always sitting in the snow with the beard and the cool accent. So we took a workshop. Chris is a certified yoga instructor. He's a Buddhist meditation instructor. He's a soon-to-be death doula, hospice volunteer. This guy's Zen. Me, not so much. I was really interested in it because I wanted to see, could I train myself to go from a state of panic into a state of calm? And could I sit in a safe situation, namely an ice cold barrel of water, and breathe myself into a state of calm when the situation around me was freaking my body out? And so the answer is yes, you can. And it has helped immensely. And so I'm going to give this to Chris because he's going to film me as I go out here. So we're going to step outside, everybody, to, oh God, it's cold, to Vermont. Okay. Welcome to Southern Vermont. Okay, so here's the barrel. So one of the things, oh my God, you filled this up, Chris? Chris put it to the top. Shit. Okay. So the thing is that there's three actual benefits in terms of anxiety. So number one, every morning when I wake up, I know that I'm going to climb in this when I'm here in Vermont. And I already dread it. How many of you have things that you dread in life? That you think about it and you immediately feel that wave of, oh, I don't want to. So simply knowing that there's something that I'm going to force myself to do that I don't want to do and feeling that wave of resistance in my body and having the just willpower to push through it, the personal commitment that I'm going to do it, even though I don't want to, that's breakthrough number one. Because that same resistance of, oh, I don't want to is what used to keep me in bed in the morning, feeling anxious and letting my thoughts spiral. So simply just saying to myself, I'm going to freaking do this, even though I don't want to. I'm going to finish my shower with a going cold, even though I don't want to. That's breakthrough number one. And these are skills that you can use everywhere, everybody. And if you get questions, Chris, just hammer me with them. Breakthrough number two is when you actually get dressed and now you're out here. My feet are freezing. There's still snow on the ground. It's probably 40 degrees here. I'm standing here without a jacket on. My husband has on a hat and a vest. And pushing through and climbing in is breakthrough number two. Breakthrough number three, when it comes to taking control and healing my trauma and my dysregulated nervous system and learning that I can in any situation flip from a state of stress and anxiety into a state of, okay, I'm okay. Soothing myself. It's a superpower. And so what you're going to witness is you're going to witness me climbing in there. And the second I climb in, it's fucking freezing. And so you're going to see me tense up for real. And then I'm going to blow out the air and submerge down to here. And here's one more thing. A lot of you are asking, but I have Raynaud's, but my hands get cold. I have Raynaud's, which is a circulatory issue that's related to arthritis. I didn't want to try this because I was afraid that my hands would get even worse, that the numbness would get worse. It's actually getting better by safe cold exposure. So I'm going to climb in here. You're going to watch me breathe through this. And then Chris, you can have them ask questions. And I'm going to stay in there for a minute. Okay. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to do it for 10 minutes. Just simply knowing that you've made A, the promise to do this and dreading it. That's breakthrough one. B, stepping into that shower or that tub or stepping outside. That's breakthrough two. 3, feeling the pressure and the wave of anxiety hit you and breathing through it. That's breakthrough number 3. Every single one of those, you are building the muscle, everybody, of knowing that you can stand in discomfort, you can feel resistance, you can feel waves of anxiety, and you have it within you to get yourself through it. All right, here we go. Yes, I'm dreading this. This is really full. Why did you have to fill this up?
You're just going to press it all out. It's all good.
I've never seen it this full, you guys. Like, my heart's racing. I do this all the time, and every time I go in, I know it's going to suck. That's one of the things about this. You never turn on the cold water in a shower. It feels good. Do we have a question?
So one question is, do you breathe through your nose or your mouth?
I breathe through my nose. I would watch the videos, but I breathe through my nose, 8 seconds, breathe out. But I breathe out of my mouth to get in. Okay, here we go. Because now I'm starting to feel a major wave of anxiety.
Other people are anxious for you.
Anxiety spreads. Anxiety spreads. Okay, you want to? Okay, here we go. Holy shit! Holy shit! Okay, I feel like. No, it's not warm. It's freezing.
I think everybody is shocked. They have no questions for you at the moment. One question is, where'd you get the barrel? And you can see right here,
Ice Barrel. Okay.
the brand is Ice Barrel. You can find it online. Another question is it easier the longer you're in?
No.
Can't you get a cold from this?
I don't know. I don't know if you can get a cold from it. What I'm experiencing is my hands and my feet are tingling. My skin feels super tingly, like pinpricks all over it.
When in chronic pain, how long do you do this for?
I don't know. I think you need to talk to your doctor.
My understanding is that anything between 2 and 5 minutes is maximum required, because after 5 minutes the value sort of dissipates.
I've actually never been in it longer than 4. I typically stay about 90 seconds. What happens the longer you stay is that you're like, when I first got in, you guys, there was this moment when I was in labor with our first daughter where the contractions were so scary and my heart was racing and my mind started to spin. And I thought, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And thankfully, the videos.
Is it hard to calm your breath?
In the beginning it is, but as you noticed, I went from really labored breathing in and out of my nose to signal to my body that I'm okay and to shut my fucking mind off.
How come you are not shivering? That's your breath controlling your body, right?
I'm shivering in the water a little bit. But did you guys notice that like 30 seconds in, I went from like really labored breathing to being pretty calm? I mean, I'm not enjoying this, but my body's calm. I don't feel any anxiety. I feel discomfort. I mean, it's freaking freezing in here, and I'm starting to shake a little bit, but I'm not feeling a wave of anxiety. My heart's not racing. My thoughts are basically at the mountain. Like, look at that view, you guys.
Yes.
And so I'm shaking and I'm cold. I'm really cold, but I'm not scared. And I'm not like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here, Even saying that made my heart race. Let me get back calm again.
Been in for a while.
Any more questions? 90 seconds is plenty. 90 seconds is enough for me.
Would you have a hot bath now?
I would love one. but I don't need a hot bath.
Is it okay to do a cold shower before bedtime?
Oh my gosh, you get a great night's sleep.
It's the best before bed.
I think a cold shower, honestly, everybody, is harder than this, because only having my head or my shoulders hit the cold water feels like my pins. Now I'm shaking.
What do you do after? Why don't you show them what you do after when you climb out?
Here we go.
Whoa!
I feel like we need like a rail, because
Yeah.
I do feel shaky. Now, you kind of get the horse stance to get the blood back in here, and then you wave your arms around to get the blood flowing, because all the blood went to like my heart and my brain to try to keep me warm. And I'm getting the circulation going again. Now
Activate.
see how red my arms are? That's the blood coming back in. And you know, ironically, I'm kind of warm. Let's go inside, because I need to get a towel. Woo! Do you have any other questions? Other questions while I'm soaking wet? Other questions?
How many minutes for a beginner?
I tried to just do for a minute. Not in the shower. For the shower, I did 30 seconds. The first time Chris and I did it, though, you guys, we did it with like in a workshop. So they wanted us to go 90 seconds. But if you have a friend there supporting you, try to go for a minute. And I didn't bring my hands down for a long time, but now I put my hands down and I shove them in between my thighs, which are basically like meat mittens. I just give them more down there.
There's a lot of questions about, can you have a heart attack? And if I had open heart surgery, can I do
You
this?
have to talk to your doctor, everybody. If you have any concern about your health or your heart or stroke or any kind of health condition, please talk to your doctor, and please do this with somebody who's supervising you, who's been trained in cold exposure therapy, just to be safe.
Is it okay to do this daily, like therapy?
Yeah, like a meditation practice. I literally just did yoga, and then I finish my exercise by going in there for 90 seconds. And I hate it every time, but every time I do it, I literally access this switch inside of me.
Why is your skin red?
I think my skin is red because when you feel waves of anxiety, or you're in a really stressful or fight or flight or emergency situation, your body sounds an alarm, okay? And if your thoughts start to spin, your blood goes to your major organs, to your brain so you can hyper focus and pay attention, and to your heart so that you can run faster. And so when I get out, I believe that my arms are red because the blood is starting to come back and circulate through my body again. And so one of the reasons why this is important is because, again, there are good reasons why you have anxiety and waves of anxiety. When you feel a wave of anxiety before a test, for example, or before a big interview, and you get nervous and you feel that sort of that alarm go through your body, your heart races, your armpits sweat, and you're like focused on everything, it's because right before an interview or right before a test, your body's sounding alarm. Hey, this is important. Pay attention. When I step into that ice cold water, which is literally about 34 degrees, the second you get into cold water, it could be life-threatening. So your body sounds an alarm. Hey, it's important. Pay attention. Do not stay in here long. And so the blood goes from your digestive tract and from your limbs to your heart and to your brain because it's trying to keep you alive. When I started to breathe, and as you watch the video, if you're just joining us now, if you go back, you'll watch me. I get in, I have a wave of anxiety because I'm in ice cold water. So my body sounds the alarm, get out, this is dangerous. I submerge, and then I breathe myself into a state where I'm telling my body I'm okay. And by breathing in, I go about 8 seconds in through my nose and 8 seconds out through my nose. It also quiets the racing thoughts. When I climbed into that barrel, you guys, my mind was like, get out, get out, get out, get out. This is cold, this is cold, this is cold. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. It's sounding the alarm. As long as I'm focused on my breathing, my thoughts aren't racing. It's pretty amazing how this is a technique you can use to take control. And I think even without the cold exposure, when your thoughts are racing, put your hands right here on your vagus nerve. This is an on-off switch between your fight-or-flight nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm, cool, grounded in your body nervous system. Put your hands right here and just breathe in 8 seconds. And then I usually say 3 sentences. I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And if you just keep doing that over and over, breathing in and breathing out to interrupt the racing thoughts, pressing on the vagus nerve to signal to your body that you want your resting nervous system to flip back on. And if you say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, in that moment, it's true. All right, I think that's it. Any other questions?
How's the Raynaud's when you get out?
Normally when I grocery shop, my hands turn white. And my Raynaud's has gotten better because of this. I never would have believed it. I'm the kind of person that literally, guys, when I reach in and grab French fries out of the freezer at the supermarket and I pull it out, my fingertips are numb. When I hike or ski, my toes are white. I was just in 34-degree water, and they're red. They're not white.
Will you take a hot shower now?
Probably, just to rinse off quickly and get into the day.
But there's no value or need necessarily, or that's not part of the practice?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, you feel warm, and you get this, like, adrenaline rush. If you've ever jumped in cold water, I grew up on Lake Michigan in Western Michigan, and they used to cut a hole in the ice and do these polar plunges for charity. When you jump into cold water, your whole body's like, woo! And so you get this like adrenaline rush. And so I wouldn't need to, but I just kind of want to rinse myself off. That's all.
I think the last question that has come up a lot probably for people in warm climates is how do you prepare the ice?
Well, what you could do is just run your bathtub to cold. And if you want to make it really, really ice, just buy a bag of ice at the gas station and throw it in there. But honestly, just freaking tap water that's cold is cold enough. And you'll be surprised. And in your nose and out your nose. And final thing, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm a woman on a mission to literally live an amazing life, to stop feeling such sadness and negativity and heaviness in my mind and my body, and to really experience more joy and ease. And I'm just sharing everything that's working for me, everything that I'm learning as I research, as I experiment with you, in the hopes that I can save you some of the heartache and headache that I have caused myself because I didn't know any better. I struggled with anxiety for 25 years, and I thought it was in the rearview mirror. I haven't had a panic attack, a bout of anxiety, anything really, for about 5 years. And boy, I woke up this morning and there it was. And I think the fact that I woke up feeling so anxious, first of all, is really scary. For me, anxiety would always come in the morning, and it feels like dread, and then it immediately for me feels like I can't do this, and the this that I'm referring to is everything. So I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing to handle my anxiety and about the importance of emotional flexibility. So as you can see, I am up here in Vermont. It's absolutely stunning. No reason to feel anxious up here. And that's another thing about anxiety, is we make ourselves wrong when we feel anxious. And I just did that. So here's why I'm feeling anxious. I came up here with my family because we've been quarantining outside of Boston for 5 weeks, and thankfully everybody's safe and healthy. And we came up to my husband's family's house up here in Vermont, a place that I love, because we thought a change of scenery would be super helpful for our psyche. And we've been here for 2 nights, and I woke up this morning and I felt so far away from my normal life that it scared the hell out of me. You know, I'm physically far away, and it was a reminder of just how far away emotionally I feel from it, and how much I actually am struggling, how I'm struggling to stay focused, how I'm struggling to work on my own, how I'm struggling to work remote, how I'm struggling to not be around so many people. And I think all of that came together and hit me this morning in the form of anxiety. Now, for me, anxiety is really suffocating. It causes me to panic. It makes me want to run. And so here's some things that I've been doing this morning to work through it. First of all, there's 2 ways I'm going to talk about emotional flexibility. One is being flexible with yourself, so that when you feel something that's uncomfortable, that you're flexible enough to give yourself space to feel it, because pushing it down, denying it, making yourself wrong, it's only going to make that negative feeling grow. It's going to make that anxiety eat you alive. And so I recognized that it was there. And what I do is I immediately say something. So my husband was next to me, and I said something to Chris, and he just listened. And he demonstrated emotional flexibility because he didn't make me wrong. He didn't try to fix it. He just let me have my reality, even though it's not what he's feeling. The next thing I did is I just got out a computer and I just started writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and dumping and dumping. And that helped a little bit. And so then I texted 3 friends. I texted Lisa and Gretchen and Mindy and said, I am really anxious right now and I'm struggling. And saying that and going back and forth on text with them was a little helpful. And then I started to pace around the house, because that's what anxiety makes me do. I start to feel like a caged animal. And Chris said we should go for a hike. And honestly, the thought of climbing a mountain right now makes me want to die. So I said no. I didn't want to exert anything. I just know I need to move. And so instead, I'm going to go walk down the valley and do this 5-mile loop that I really don't feel like doing. But I know I need to, because I know that anxiety gets stored in my nervous system. It's triggered by my nervous system, that everything right now feels far away from the life that I was living and the life that you were living. And that's why I'm so anxious right now. And so I'm going to move my body and move it out of my body. And then I am going to just practice having emotional flexibility and allowing the feelings to rise and fall and not do anything about it. So if you're experiencing anxiety for the first time, or if your normal anxiety has been jacked way up, or if it's coming back like it is for me, please be patient with yourself. Take deep breaths, get outside and walk, and by all means, be talking to your friends and family about what you're feeling. Because stored in here, it'll eat you alive. But when you start to speak about it and you start to move it through your body, you will move it out of your body and you will feel better. I know in an hour and a half when I'm done with this walk, I will feel 100 times better. And I know if you pick up the phone and call somebody, or you start journaling, or you put on an exercise video and you move, you will move this through your nervous system and you will feel back in control. I promise. I promise. I promise. I can't promise that it won't come back, but I can promise that you can make it disappear by taking those steps. You have a question that I think the entire planet can relate to right now.
Yeah.
Which is difficulty focusing. So why don't you tell me first a little bit about your situation and the details around it and what you're noticing about your ADD and ADHD, okay?
Yeah, well, I was diagnosed at 28, and so I've been kind of working with my own symptoms for years now. I'm 38 on Thursday, actually.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Everybody
you.
give some thumbs up and some hearts to Angie. She's celebrating a birthday in quarantine. Here we go.
Yeah,
And your present is a coaching session with Mel Robbins.
that's exactly what I was going to say. This is the best birthday present. But then upon having kids, I have an almost 6-year-old and an 18-month-old, kind of taking on those responsibilities on top of your own ADHD. And then all of a sudden we started seeing symptoms in our almost 6-year-old around 3.5 of having ADHD. Like I would look at him and see, oh my gosh, that was me when I was his age. And it was just kind of building, and we had reached out to some doctors over.
Let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
So first of all, you get diagnosed with ADHD when you're 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What did you feel when you got that diagnosis?
Relief.
Okay. And how does ADHD present itself for you? Because what most of you don't realize is that ADHD in women and girls is very different than ADHD in men and boys, and that women are profoundly underdiagnosed. I was not diagnosed with ADD until I was 45 years old, and it was liberating to find out I wasn't crazy. I wasn't losing my mind. It wasn't premenopause. It was an attention and focus issue. And one of the things I want everybody to understand is, first of all, we're going to have a general conversation about focus, because whether you clinically have a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD, everybody is having trouble focusing right now. Mm-hmm. Every time, Angie, I walk through our kitchen and one of our daughters are down there. They're 21 and 19. They're both taking classes online because their colleges obviously got shut down. Every one of them is complaining to their friends, I've been upstairs all day. I haven't got anything done.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at my desk all day. I can't concentrate. I can't focus.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell am I doing all day? What is going on? And so the first thing I want to say to you, Angie, is that this is not a normal situation.
Mm-hmm.
And a normal response to an abnormal situation is to lose your focus and to feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to know is, how is being in quarantine impacting your ability to focus?
It's as if it's just compounded and amplified with my husband working from home upstairs, having to figure out our schedules between, okay, who's going to do the schooling and who's going to be working at that time, or if the only little break we get to go one-on-one with our 6-year-old is when the 18-month-old takes a nap.
Okay, so let me just get the facts straight. You got your husband who's working full-time.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a 5-year-old that has some issues with ADHD. You've got an 18-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
You have a home-based business, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is there anybody else in the house?
No. And I should add, our 18-month-old he's in the immunocompromised category because he was born 7 weeks premature. So he was in the NICU for a month, and actually last September and October, he went to daycare like 6 times and had to be hospitalized twice with RSV and respiratory issues.
Okay. So how is your 18-month-old doing today?
He's perfectly fine. He's on an inhaler twice a day, just as like protocol for his issues last fall. But it's also, that's part of the added fear for us is not only, are we in this situation, but we do have one of the people who is an immunocompromised member of our family. So we have to keep the grandparents away and all of that. So it just feels
let me ask you a question. Given that you are quarantined, your husband's got to work full time, you got a home-based business, you got 2 kids under 5, one of whom has a compromised immune system. So you got to be hyper vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
Describe for me how this situation has triggered your inability to focus and heightened your anxiety?
Well, yeah, and I really don't think I've had anxiety before now, really. I don't,
Really?
yeah, I didn't really suffer, like I was misdiagnosed with depression earlier on before I was properly diagnosed with ADHD, but I didn't really have anxiety before now. But yeah, this is, I mean, it's a whole different level of all of the fears. You know,
What
you're
are you
worried.
afraid of? Describe them all for me.
I'm
Let's start hearing the list. And if you can relate to this as you're watching me coach Angie, give us a thumbs up, or you can participate in this coaching by telling me in the comments, what are you afraid of? So describe kind of where your mind goes. What do you think about? What's the worst stuff you think about? What do you get anxious about, Angie?
I think the thing I think of is we barely left the house, but my husband does have to go get groceries, and he actually suffers from anxiety, so he's actually wonderful about cleaning off all the groceries and making sure everything is clean before he brings it in the house. I mean, we've had a couple packages, things that we've had to order online that we've had shipped, we leave outside. So it's that fear of something just by chance getting in and making him sick, and not being sure where it's coming from.
And where do you feel the anxiety when your thoughts start to spiral? Where do you feel it in your body?
In my chest. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like just this weight, like I can't breathe, and it just feels overwhelming.
And what do you do when your chest starts to get really tight and your thoughts become very overwhelming?
I just start talking. I just talk. I just tell my husband how I'm feeling, or I just say, I got to get this out because, and anybody that knows me knows that's true. I just start, okay, I got to get this out or else it's going to crush me. And internalizing it has only, proven to build the anxiety worse. So I've always been a talker, but like I got to get it out. I have to tell you how I feel, just even if I just have to say it, so you can tell me that my fears are maybe a little out of whack, or hey, this is what we're going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen. We're going to make sure that we have the groceries outside.
Right.
We're going to keep all the cardboard boxes outside, even what little risk that may be. We're gonna take all the precautions. I mean, I think my husband, he went to the grocery store yesterday and he's like, I'm getting everything for 2 weeks, and he was gone for like 3.5 hours because he was just being so careful with everything. And it's just that thing that you don't want to drop the ball and feel like you're safe for a second in the risk of something happening to him.
And how exhausted are you?
Oh, it's completely exhausting. Like I feel, I mean, I do get a little more sleep once we do all those things. Once I do talk it out, I feel like I'm able to actually sleep a little bit better. But yeah, it definitely, it pops up, and you just wake up and you think about, the worst case scenario happening. But I try to,
it's right there. The anxiety is right there with you as well when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. And I mean, if we're all home and no one goes anywhere and it's fine. You know what I mean? It doesn't really present itself, but it's the, walking outside and going on a walk and, telling our 5-year-old, like, you can't run over to, that friend.
Okay. So I want to handle this one thing at a time. So let's talk about the anxiety first. Okay.
Okay.
So it would be weird if you weren't feeling anxiety right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because feeling anxious, feeling afraid, feeling overwhelmed in a moment like this is a normal response.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what happens when you start feeling anxiety is the anxiety itself becomes so overwhelming that you start to resist it and you make it wrong, and you start to fear the anxiety, and resisting it makes it even worse. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so talking it out is one strategy. But the thing about that is your 5-year-old will absorb that energy from you.
Yeah.
And so your 5-year-old won't remember the specifics of this period of time, but your 5-year-old will remember how it felt to be around mommy. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to use this as an opportunity to start to train your mind to not go there. Okay. Because your husband's already being hyper vigilant. And what's happening is you're allowing your anxious thoughts to spin. And when you are talking them out, you're getting them out of your mind, but you are still giving them weight by now spreading all of this anxiety to your husband. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a strategy that I want you to use. I want you to start to use this as a chance to catch your mind when you start to go into hypervigilance, which is a form of anxiety that a lot of people are feeling right now. Your safety and your family's safety is the paramount importance here. And you can bet on the fact that your husband, if he goes out every 2 weeks, is going to be doing the grocery shopping and being vigilant. And you can stand there with your spray bottle and spray him down with, your homemade sanitizer. But what you want to do is not allow your mind to go there. So there's 2 things I want. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 tools I want you to use. I know you already know the 5-second rule. So when your mind starts to drift to, what are we going to do? What's your 18 months old name?
Otis.
What happens if Otis gets us? What happens if Otis has to go into the hospital? What happens if there's something on the milk carton and then it touches me and then I touch him and then Otis gets sick and then I'll never forgive myself and then we get there and there's no ventilator and then he's in the NICU and that is the moment that we got to stop down. So the moment you catch your thoughts going from one thought, did he wipe down the milk? Which is how it begins. And it starts going to the next one, because if he didn't, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And we're going to stop it down because we're not going to allow ourselves to get hysterical.
Yeah.
You are allowed to ask him, is everything cleaned off? Do you need me to wipe anything? You're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to have your mind go nuts. Okay. Yeah. Super important. So that's number 1. Number 2, when you start feeling yourself stepping up the anxiety, you are really cleaning everything like crazy, or you're feeling that chest pressure come on. When that steps up, I want you to step out of the room for a minute.
Okay.
I want you to take control by removing yourself from the thing you're hyper focused on. Like, is there something that you do when you get anxious? You clean, you organize the, what do you do?
Yeah, I clean.
Okay.
Organize, do laundry, something.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you catch yourself doing anxiety chores, I want you to step away. I want you to step out, and I want you to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to allow myself to get worked up about this. Here's the final thing that I think will help a lot. Telling yourself that nothing bad is going to happen does not work.
Exactly.
And the reason why it doesn't work is because when you say nothing bad is going to happen, it invalidates your fear. The best way to disappear fear that is supported by facts, because we all do need to protect our family's safety, and we all do need to be vigilant in terms of washing hands and cleaning stuff when we get it from the grocery store. So the fear is valid, but I don't want the fear to hijack you. So what you're going to say is, when you feel the chest tightening, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're going to say, if something happens, we'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
Today, we're all safe. So can you say that with me? If something happens, here we go. If something happens, we'll deal with it then.
We will deal with it when it comes, and we will all be safe.
Yes. And what does saying that do for you?
It just gives me the control back, which I think is like everybody feels like this is all out of our control. So if I'm saying that, then I take it back, and then the anxiety won't control me.
Yes, because as weird as it sounds, anxiety is a coping mechanism. Because when you can't control all the craziness that's going on out there, you start to feel anxiety and you start to get nervous and your thoughts start to spiral. And whatever it is that you do, talking it out or folding laundry or focusing on your chest tightening. All of that worrying distracts you from the thing you can't control. And then it makes you focus on anxiety and getting control of anxiety. And so we don't want anxiety to be the thing that's controlling you. Using that mantra, hey, if something happens, we'll deal with it then, and we will all be safe. And today, everybody is great. Today, we're doing our part. And the today part's really important because it brings you back into the present. Anxiety is trying to hijack you and pull you into a scary future. Hey, no, if something happens, we'll deal with it then. Today, we're all safe, and there's nothing that I need to concern myself with. There's a really powerful concept that I learned from Carrie Lorenz called span of control. And it's being borrowed as a military term. And I'm going to tell you how I've used it, okay, in order to quiet the anxiety, because I don't know about you, but when I start to get anxious about all the uncertainty, I feel my heart race. I feel my mind start to spin. I start to think about what if this, what if that, what if the other thing, what if another thing happens? And that's not helpful. Not only is it not helpful because you can't solve problems when you're in that state, it's not helpful because you start to panic. And that is super scary. And it's also not helpful because it suppresses your immune system. And so it is critical. And that's why every day at noon, we're going to be going live to help you stay connected, to give you a lifeline, to give you tools that you need so that you can deepen your compassion to yourself. You can stay calm. You can stay centered because you are enough to deal with what's going on. You really are. You have it within you to truly not give in to the fear that this is creating and to continue to be steady and to trust and to develop the tools that you need inside to be grounded and calm and optimistic as we move through this as a society. And so I'm going to teach you how you do it. And I'm going to reveal what I'm using to do it in real time. And I'm going to share with you what's going on in our family as we are, together in the house and limiting what we're doing. And I want to do this because I want you to turn inward in this time. And so let me go back to my story. I know I'm a little bit all over the place. So I get home, there's nobody here. And in a time of crisis, where do you want to be? With your family. You want to be somewhere safe. And so borrowing this term span of control, what is it? Well, it's a term. Carrie Lorenz happened to be the first F-14 Tomcat pilot in the history of the United States. And she's one of my dear friends. And the military term span of control is this idea that when you're in a crisis, which you're in right now, because there's so much uncertainty, you're okay right now, but there's so much uncertainty out there. In order to calm your anxiety and focus your mind, you've got to narrow your span of control. And the way that I did that for myself is very simple. I want you to pick 3 things today that you need to do that will make you feel safe and that will make you feel safe regarding your family or safer, and that will make you feel a little bit more prepared for being still or being isolated for the next 3 weeks. Let's just start there, okay? And I want you to write those in the comments. What do you need to do? 3 things in order for you to feel safe, in order for your family to feel a little bit safer, and in order for you to feel like you could be where you are or get to the place you need to get to, so that if you were just sitting there for 3 weeks, you were going to be good, okay? Just focusing on those 3 things was super helpful for me because it meant I don't need to worry about whether or not they're grounding domestic air travel right now. I don't need to worry about whether or not Walt Disney is closed. I don't need to worry about what's going to happen in May or June. Already my talk show's been canceled. Already I've had numerous speaking events canceled. Already my kids' colleges have been canceled. Already all kinds of stuff has happened. But I don't need to worry about that, and neither do you. You need to worry about what's one step you can take in order to feel safe, what's one step you can take to make your family safe, and what's one step you can do to be prepared. Those three things are within your span of control. Again, we don't know if society is prepared, but you can be prepared mentally. So what did I do? First of all, to keep myself safe, I made sure and got to Trader Joe's, and I stocked up, not selfishly, not crazy tons of stuff, but just enough so that if we needed to, be here at the house for up to 3 weeks, that we would be fine. The second thing that I did is I immediately got Chris and Oakley and my daughter in California on planes. They're all flying today and will be home tonight. The third thing that I did is I just connected with my friends to make sure that they were okay. And that's all that's in my span of control right now. Oh, I know the other thing that I did. I connected with my dad and mom, and they were in Florida, and they're now driving back to Michigan. Why? Well, because I think we all feel much better knowing that if something happens and they need to be quarantined or isolated, which I think, honestly, the way that I'm operating, everybody, is when you plan, you're in control. So I'm planning for the United States to be operating the way that Italy is, in a complete lockdown, in order to contain and level this thing out, which is what I think should happen. We should do it sooner rather than later. I'm operating like that because it is lessening my anxiety because I'm taking control. So knowing that my parents are going home, knowing that my kids are getting back here and my husband and son are getting back here and we've moved up their flights, knowing that I've got enough food without being a greedy stockpiler to get us through the next 3 weeks, knowing that spring is coming, I can now calm down and focus on the opportunity of this. Because I think that this is the one time in your life you will likely go through something like this. And tell me one time that you went through a challenge and it didn't make you stronger. Every single challenge you face in your life makes you a stronger person. And this is going to be exactly the same way. So now that I have a plan, because I've narrowed my span of control to my safety, my family's safety, and getting prepared, now I can focus on how to turn in and be positive and be optimistic and to be centered. And here's the other thing. I think it's really important right now, if you're a single parent or if you're disconnected from your family, I think it's really important to ask out for help. Really important to ask for help right now. I'm sure that there are students in your area that are displaced. I'm sure that there are neighbors that are scared to go to the grocery store. So if you're disconnected from your parents and you're not near them and you can't travel to them, maybe you can call somebody that lives near them to go to the grocery store for them. Maybe you can order something on Amazon and send it to them. There are ways for you to take action, which is what's going to calm you down in order to be prepared and to feel safe. So that's what I'm going to be doing every day at noon. I'm going to feel a lot better when my husband and son and 2 daughters walk in the door tonight. But you need to have perspective that this is going to pass. You need to be patient with everybody that you come in contact with. And once you've handled your safety and your family's safety and you feel that you've prepared yourself to be able to be quiet and to be isolated for 3 or 4 weeks, now you can turn inward and start to look at this as an opportunity. Because I honestly think it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to not get lost in fear. It's an opportunity to go through this with your spirit and your compassion and your kindness leading you. It's an opportunity for you to deepen your connections with yourself and with your family members and with your friends. It's an opportunity, if you are a small business, to think about innovating. And it's an opportunity for you to do some of those creative projects, to slow down a little bit, to invest in your growth by reading more and by taking on projects and being with your family. And if right now you're scared and you're alone, this is a moment to ask for help. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.